Hello, my one viewer. Can you hear me? Hi, William. How's everyone doing this morning? Not your traditional grain cart action today. It's so wet out in this field that they're loading me in the road, or on the road here, and I'm taking it up to the bin, because the bin side is also too wet for the truck. Been that kind of year so far. Those of you who keep up with the videos chronologically speaking, you're probably about 2 weeks behind, maybe 10 days behind, just because it's impossible for me to upload every day, and it's counterproductive for film resources. It turns out pretty wet, very wet actually. The first load I tried to pull out of this field, I about got stuck myself. Broke down right now at 4-headed drive, changed the stroke 4 times, can't figure out what to do. The drive chain on like the side, that gearbox, with like a 3-bolt fixture on it. Maybe you're over tightening it. Hi, Connor. Have a grain starter. We do have a shiver system, which is a smaller grain system for drying, but it's not capable of a commercial scale of drying. It will not keep up with even our smallest combine. It might be able to take 5 points of moisture out of 20% corn at maybe 600 or 700 bushel an hour, which is not near enough to keep up. Our smallest combine can easily do 3,000 bushels an hour. So it's going to be hard to really make that work. A lot of people do buy grain dryers, and there's a place for them, but we just don't have the scale or the setup in our operation to justify something that can actually keep the wheels turning on the combine. Even if we put up a wet bin, we'd have to build a couple $100,000 dryer just for it to make sense. This year we're picking dry corn. Fortunately, last year our corn dried out way too fast on us because it didn't rain from second or third week of July to the second or third week of October, I don't remember exactly. But we were picking like 11% corn. Well, that 4% right there, moisture, would have probably paid pretty well if we had a dryer and picked it at a higher moisture, but you can't predict everything. Hard part about grain one of those fancy right-handed side grain carts where I unload on that side, you could watch everything. The combine's usually on that side, and I'd unload on that side, but that's not the case. We've got the traditional left-handed grain cart, which kind of makes more sense to me. Michael Jeff is sitting there manning the semi, sitting on the auger swing away, so he's actually dumping right now. It'd be nice to have one of those big 700 or 800 bushel gravity wagons. For what it's worth, though, semis is already out, so we don't need to buy a wagon. Hi, Ryan. Combines are so big and the headers are so small. I mean, yes and no. If you watch my last videos, we're definitely maximizing the capacity on that 780 with the Negro corn head. On the off chance that we have a terrible year and our corn is yielding less than 200 bushel per acre, yes, that combine would definitely struggle to stay full. But that's not the case in most years. And for the draper, I mean, you could run a 30-foot draper, you could run a 40-foot draper. As long as you're not pushing the beans over when you're trying to cut them, it really does not matter what size you have. The corn head or the draper are only a marginal part of your efficiency. Sure, you save some time turning. I'm not going to deny that fact. At the end of the day, though, adding 5% capacity per hour on average justifies spending, what, $90,000, $100,000 to go from an 8-row fixed corn head to a 12-row folder? You're going to pick more, yes, like I said, but you're going to pick that much. If we made the switch to just one combine and corn...
The problem is here 8 and 6 or 6 and 6 on the output row, and then I have to slow down because of the bulk row.
The problem with that...
What do you want me to do? I just want you to pick.
My dad and Katie chirping at each other on the Midland radios. Well, like I said, if we went to one combine corn, at 780 corn scale, we can keep 5,000 bushel an hour away from the combine. Hauling to an elevator. If we're hauling to one of our bin sites, that's within a half mile to a mile, it's not 2 miles. From the field, sure, it'll work, but once we get farther away from home, we'll be overwhelmed. We were overwhelmed last year with a 670 and 9670. I would venture to say that the 780 is 30 to 40% more combine than the 9670. Maybe that's an overestimation. Yes, you can drive faster with a smaller header, but there's a point of diminishing returns, and that's one thing you're going to see, and that's what the problem would be with a small head, lower yielding corn crop. And we could take 7.5 miles an hour and 250 bushel corn and keep that combine full, but the one issue is the weak horsepower. It almost fixes. I'll give you one so it runs out of horsepower. Once that ProDrive transmission shifts into the next gear, which is kind of around 8 miles an hour, it just completely sucks your power away. When I'm driving it, if it hits that mark and shifts up, it'll give me a low engine speed warning just because it doesn't have the power to move on the ground. It looks like it, but I can't tell for sure. You guys a taste of action. So like I said, field's too wet.
I think you can.
Field's too wet for me. How do I turn this thing around? To drive out there with the grain cart. There's Dad, the 780 unloading on me, and there's Katie. She's running the 670, and they're not picking a full set of rows down and back, just because there's no reason to have to drive loaded all the way back. So they're running very inefficient here, but as you can tell, if that indicates anything to you, the field is very wet, extremely wet.
Use your phone if you can hold it on the road.
Katie's already got some calf corn. all over the place. Sorry. Look at that mud. That's why I'm not in the field. Are those LSWs or are those duals? You tell me. Oh, thanks for letting me go. Okay, over here. Hi, Allie and Lenny. Raining cats and dogs in southwest Missouri. I hope it doesn't come here, man. We're running good for the first 2 weeks. The combine broke down. We missed probably what was the best weather you could have to cut soybeans for the rest of the year. 80 to 90 degrees and dry. We've got 50 acres of soybeans to go. It's sunny today, so we might be able to mud those out. This corn crop, though, we've been making a mess. Like I said, the videos are kind of behind. It doesn't make sense for me to upload every day. It's too much work, and it's just counterproductive in terms of viewership. So you're about 10 to 14 days out, I don't know. In the next couple days, you'll see it's going to rain a lot, and then we're here. I mean, it's muddy. That's an understatement. At some point in time, there is a video where I completely get this thing buried, which is impressive because it's a four-wheel drive tractor. The biggest issue we're running into, which is a great question, Tristan, is this grain cart is on 1050 tires. Not the biggest option. You can have 1250s. That would help. When this thing is fully loaded going through the field, it literally turns into a submarine. I mean, it just dives into the ground. The wheels stop turning. So the issue we're running into is if I take this cart out in the field, I can't float like the combine can. And once I get stuck, I get stuck. This four-wheel drive tractor will just dig itself in the hole. That's why I'm on the road. And along those same lines, which I will talk about in a video, I don't know, a couple videos from now, that we are considering making an upgrade in the grain cart. If not a bigger size of cart, definitely on tracks, because we want to be able to float across the ground. Not to mention when it's wet like this, whatever kind of damage we're doing to the ground, because we are packing it down, there's no denying that. There's nothing we can do. There's a lot of rain forecast here, and we're trying to get our crop out. Corn's starting to fall over a little bit, and it makes us even more concerned because you don't want your corn to fall on the ground. Hey, Nacho. What's the weather like down in Argentina? If you guys have any questions, ask away. Now's an easy time for me to answer. What brands? Leasing and Brent make great grain carts. We've never had either of those brands. Well, that's not true. Long before my time, we did have a grain cart. Nice old blue, get these grain cart field. A little bit of the backstory. We've mostly been a family farm in terms of employment. We don't hire anyone outside. So come harvest, what you see here, everyone's blood. And my dad has never been big on getting outside help, just from reliability and liability standpoint. So for years we ran 2 combines, but we never ran a grain cart. So once I got home from college, it's been 4 or 5 years ago now, we did get a grain cart. It's made a world of difference in terms of efficiency. Now we're in a predicament where we need more truck drivers. So it's kind of a continuous cycle of you fix one thing, you create a new problem. You've got too much corn to get away now. Someone commented and asked about a lot of great equipment, but it doesn't seem like you have much grain storage. It does appear like we don't have much grain storage, but our logistical infrastructure is different than, say, some of these northwestern farmers, Larson Farms, millennial farmers. Those guys are in an area where there's not a lot of local elevators or commercial storage. So for them to be comfortable with harvesting their crop and the risk of a freeze or wet conditions, they need to have very large, almost elevator-like facilities. We don't have to have that. If I put a pencil mark down here through a 20-mile radius around me, there's probably 10 million bushels of commercial storage. And this is corn country, a large amount of grain. So storage is not an issue. We don't have big facilities, but we have a lot. So this bin site alone, we've got probably 60 to 70,000 bushels storage here. At the main farm, probably 150,000 bushels dip. In total, we probably could store 350,000 bushels of corn. That's not all of our corn ground by any means, but it's enough to really alleviate the pressure of waiting in the line. And it's different. You got to understand that a farm here in Central Illinois operates much different than a farm on what would traditionally be called the freight acres. Now, not that up in the Northwest they can't grow great crops, but they're dealing with much different problems than we are. We're not typically concerned about our crop drying down or early frost hurting us. If we have an early frost here, the rest of the country can take trouble. Sorry, I got this. 4 inches in the last 3 weeks, 4 and 4 and looking at. Well, you can't complain about that, Nacho. All the talk, South America is always the talk of the town. You know, in terms of the United States commodity markets, it's always what's going on in Brazil or Argentina, and you have a very large effect on our market, which is the markets are a worldwide commodity market. And you guys always seem to be the topic of discussion because to be fair, you do produce a much larger amount of crops, especially on the soybean side. I don't know that your average yield is high, but you just have so many more acres to put in production. Farm in Quincy. Okay, you're not too far away. Corn and soybeans. That's an easy yes in Illinois. I can just imagine that you grow corn and soybeans, and possibly if you're in the south side, wheat. Typically, the crops you see around here. Hey, Josh, from Las Vegas. Nice to have you here. I bet you the weather's nice there. It is 50 degrees right now. So again, we're loading straight into the bin here. You're up in a farm in Central Valley, California. That's a beautiful country. What kind of crops did you grow there, Josh? I know California is definitely the most diverse agricultural state in the United States. This is getting kind of messy. We spent too much time with this kind of I feel like last year by this time we were done harvesting, but maybe I'm wrong. Going on this side. The cost of doing business. test weight on this corn this year is very light, much lighter than I was expecting it to be. I don't know if it's from all the July rain or just the entire season being wet, creating a lot of nitrogen loss. Our yields have been pretty good for the most part, better than I was expecting. Same on the soybean side. Yeah, Nacho, we got 50 to 60 acres of beans right now. The sun's shining today and the wind's blowing, so maybe we'll get up to 10 moisture-wise. The ground conditions are wet, but at this point in the year, if they're going to cut, we're going to go cut.
Do not go where I just went through. On the north side, just went through. Do not go up there. Okay.
Well, one trick that I found with loading trucks with the grain cart is that the faster you go, the better. Now, I do understand that you're not supposed to go over, if it's 1200 ppm. I don't remember the manufacturer recommendation on that. But the force of that grain coming out pushes the grain to the side of the truck and allows you to load it a little bit better. And you have to be comfortable with the pace because if you don't time it right, you will make a big mistake. I've learned my lesson a few times. I've gotten better in the last year, 2 years. I'm actually pretty good at unloading now. But when I first started, there was a learning curve, to say the least. I need like a multiple camera setup here. His duals are packed full of mud. K-Dub. Hello from Peoria. How's it going? And that's the most commonly asked question on the channel by far. I need to make like an introduction video to put on the main page for people to watch and answer some common questions, because I feel like that would help people out. I do put a description at the bottom of every video, not this one, just because I'm on my iPad. But there is a description at the bottom of every video that kind of gives you a good synopsis of myself, my family, my farming operation. So the farm we're on right now is definitely one of our wettest farms. You can see this right here. I'll get my finger in the right spot. There you go. This right here is a surface ditch coming out of the field. It's 120 acres out here. Take the iPad. There's 120 acres out here that forms almost a bowl. So all of this farm ground around here drains to this area. And unfortunately, grade does not allow it to escape. So there's technically a natural pond or swamp there. Right there, you can't really see it, there is a tile drain, a surface drain. Hooks up to subsurface tiles out in that field. There's some terraces on the north field. It drains about 1,800 foot to the drainage ditch on the other side of our neighbor's field. This off season, we're going to be installing another 24-inch direct surface drain main across there. The tile is piled over there. You can see the black 24-inch pipe. They're going to run across your 1,800 foot. Where that flag is right there, they're going to be putting in, like I said, another surface drain. When we get a large amount of rainfall, this farm gets so saturated or underwater to such an extent that you can take a boat out. Went to EIU. Hey, I've got a lot of friends and family that went to EIU. Great school. Wouldn't be a school I'd go to for agriculture. I don't think they have any kind of agriculture, but other than that, they have a phenomenal program there. I believe they've been hurting on the enrollment over the last 5 to 10 years, and the state's financial struggles has not helped them by any means. I do think they've kind of turned a corner, so to speak, and they may be improving things. Hopefully. I mean, it's a local college, and it supports our two towns here. Mattoon and Charleston are very closely connected, but if you went to EIU, you'd know that. And of course, we've got Lakeland College, which is literally about... Lakeland College is right there. I mean, you can see the building. Where is that? There you go. Oh. Okay. Lakeland College is right there. It's not even 3/4 of a mile. And then our neighbors, Bill and Stan Uphoff, I mentioned them before, and they also comment on my videos pretty frequently. That's them right over there. That's them farming. They're running a 780, a 12-row gearing off holding corn head. They're red people. Other than their combine, everything's red. Interesting that they go green for the combine, but they go red for all the other things. Okay. At the end of the day, I harp and chirp on all the casings and the boxing, but everyone makes good equipment. They all have the pros and cons. Really, it's just a matter of what perks are worth the money. The only thing I will say is I have heard that Cases Autos here, all of their GPS systems are not good. That's the one thing I will say. But often you can put your stuff in terms of Street Star on other people's equipment. It might be worth considering. Personally, I would love to run a livestock, as long as it doesn't break down. If you pencil it out, you can almost buy, well, not almost, you can almost get Lexion's, one of their bigger combines, for the price of our 780 race. I think you can get them for high fives, and it would be more of a combine. Not even close, it would be more of a combine than that 780. Bigger class. Everything. I think the X9 is a great combine, very expensive, and I'm sure there are still some bugs to work out on it. As with any new design, give it a couple of years and it'll be a good machine. Farm production. How's it going? Switzerland. What time is it in Switzerland? 6 hours ahead? Behind? 6 hours ahead. Did you ever let someone who was in farming come and spend the day on the farm? Oh, sure. I definitely consider that. I may take you to work. I need someone to clean my windows. Alright, everyone pay close attention when I take this turn. Oh, you can't hear me at all? Everyone look here along the road. The first time I tried to leave this farm with a loaded grain cart, this is what happened, and this is why I'm not in the field. That is all me, and we haven't even gotten to the worst part. of this, it's certainly going to. Oh, dude, surely this won't cancel me out. Can you hear me? You guys hear me? Is that any better? I should be on my headphones. Okay. I'll do that. I'll do that from the start next time. It's hard for me to really understand the audio. The YouTube does not give me any feedback in terms of audio levels. When I'm editing my videos, I'm filming my camera. I have actual feedback. I can see my decibel bars. I believe it's technically against the law to wear headphones while you're driving. So don't tell anyone. What gear do I use for my videos? Let me get to the field and I'll show you. I've got all my stuff in here. It's unfortunate that I'm on a busy highway here. Well, not busy, but somewhat occupied. There's nothing I can do about the mount for the iPad. You're just going to have to deal with it. I thought it'd be really cool to have like a live stream setup in the tractor where you have multiple cameras. Like I have a camera on the grain cart, camera on the tractor. I think that'd be fascinating. It takes an extensive amount of planning. And we kind of fly by the seat of our pants here, so that may not be possible. Thinking about starting a channel for farming. What do you think I should do? Well, you should start making videos and see what you're comfortable doing and what you're good at. Unfortunately, the only way to get better is to do it. I mean, if you go back and watch my first videos, which a couple of them I've just unlisted from the channel at this point, I mean, I was terrible. And I'm not saying I'm a pro by any means now, but I've learned so much in the course of 120 or 130 videos that my content is really improved. And it's full scale. It's everything from my understanding of my cameras to you know, how I talk, how I record, making eye contact with the lens, everything. Where are we at? Cause Diver. I appreciate the donation. Thank you. I lived up there for 20 years near O'Hare Airport. That's quite the place. Before leaving the country, surely you wouldn't leave the great state of Illinois and the United States. It's funny. I messaged Ivers Farms on Instagram yesterday. He's actually not too far away from me to the southeast, probably an hour and a half. The farm's a little bit different type of ground than we do. Very large, impressive operation. I'm sure a lot of you have actually been have seen his channel. He's some very impressive stuff, and I think people really like watching the case because it's more interesting to see that diversification of farm equipment. They have a very, very impressive fleet and farm. And I asked him, because they farm in Illinois and Indiana, I asked him what his favorite state was. And he said that Illinois is home, but Indiana is more favorable in terms of rules and regulations. And I'm not going to disagree with that. If I could pick up and move, I would move out of Illinois, but we're a little bit centered. Thanks again for the donation. So let me catch up here. Have I ever heard about the black magic Atom? The switch would be a trick for multi. I haven't heard about that, but I will look it up. Like I said, it'd be really neat to put on live streams here in the tractor where I could give you feedback on everything. You know, I have a camera on myself, tractor, multiple screens on here. I'm a fan of a lot of screens. Some of you have never seen my editing setup. But this is the camera I film with. It is a Sony A7S III. It says somewhere on here. Oh, there. It's a Sony A7S III. It's very dirty. I got a 16 by 35 millimeter 2.8 aperture G Master lens, and then just a Rode Video Micro Pro. Very expensive camera. So if you're looking to get into YouTube video making, I would start with the GoPro. It is the best combination of economics. It's friendly. It's not expensive. Very user friendly. And not to mention it has some really awesome technology, great internal stabilization. So something you may notice watching my videos and other people, if I walk with the camera, it's going to shake. You'll see the frame shaking. This has some stabilization to it, but not enough to make up for any kind of problems. The GoPro at fantastic stabilization. Fantastic. Let's go, Brandon. I love it. I started with a Sony A6400, and honestly, as an entry-level person, I didn't have any experience with videography, editing, any of that jazz. I am very familiar with computers, software, but you know, this discipline of making videos was completely new to me. And to put it simply, I feel like I kind of failed my way forward. Like I said, I made a lot of videos. I don't think were that great, but I learned how to fine-tune my craft. And one of the things I did when I started the channel is I made a goal. Every time I made a video, I wanted to improve on something. One of my worst flaws at the beginning, and I've learned very well since then, was my audio. And it's very important when you make videos to have very smooth audio. Now, your audio doesn't have to be the greatest quality, but you don't want clip to clip to be all over the place. You don't want me talking right now to be here and me talking 2 minutes from now to be up here. So you have to learn in your software how to match all that. There's automated tools to do that, but I didn't know how to do that. So I use that for more realistic action shots, you know, putting things on equipment. I use this right here, GoPro. That is an 8. I also have another GoPro. This case on here is in case I need to use it as like an actual vlogging camera. I can attach a mic to it. My mic I have right here, so it's more of a backup. Got this magnet on Amazon for like 20 bucks, and it's so strong, it's kind of scary. I don't know if there's anything on here I can attach it to. Not really. Let's show you. If I attach this to a tractor, a combine head, a grain cart, tillage implement, I mean, I have to twist and pull to get it off, so it's not going anywhere. So I use that for action shots. More of a supplement anymore to my main filming setup. And of course, I have my drone, which I'm not going to get it out. It's down here. I have a DJI Mavic 2 Zoom. The reason I went with the Zoom over the Pro, in retrospect, I probably would have got the Pro, but the Zoom could zoom, and it could do, I believe, up to 2 times or maybe 4 times lossless zoom. So that means that when you zoom in, you don't get pixelization. It's not digital. At the end of the day, I think I'd rather have the higher quality sensor that the Pro has. Where it'd make the biggest difference is at sunset into nighttime, and be able to pick up things a lot better. One of the hardest times to film with a drone is at night. So any footage you see at night with a drone might be pixelated. It might have some, objects and artifacts in it that don't look that great, but it's just the cost of flying my drone at night, and I do the best. The DJI drones, what I will say about them is that they're extremely good in terms of technology. I have very high taste for my drone footage, and I don't like you to see things where I adjust the camera or move. I want everything to be as smooth as possible. So I use those automated tracking features, flight features, and a lot of times I'm sitting in the tractor driving, but I don't have my hands on the drone. The drone is flying itself, recording, and the magic is editing. You can put it all together, you clip out the bad things, you find some good songs. Of course, you got to use things that aren't copyrighted because you'll lose your monetization on videos, and that's how it works. There's some rumors that there's a DJI Mavic 3 in the works, and I think that if it comes out, I will make the upgrade, which it will not be cheap. Okay. Let me pull out here before I answer these questions. Yes, that camera is very expensive. So I started with something that was more reasonable. I went to that. You know, the channel has done very well as of lately. I appreciate all your support. So, you know, I figured I'd make an upgrade and make my quality even better. And I think it shows in my videos that camera is magical. It makes me look prettier than I actually am. Battlefront Zero, hi from Chicago. Hey, you're just 3 miles to the north. I'm right here on Route I-57. If you come south, we're farming right by I-57 right now. Straight shot to the south. Canadian. Have a nice harvest day. Thank you. I appreciate you stopping by. If there's any difference in a YouTube premium user watching your vids versus a normal user? I haven't really looked into that too much, but I can see when I look at my analytics page, if a YouTube premium person watches your video, you automatically get some kind of a cut, so to speak, but it's a very marginal amount of money. But then again, I don't believe YouTube premium people watch advertisements, so that's kind of where the trade-off is as opposed to you having to watch ads. And maybe I'm wrong. Honestly, I'm not a YouTube premium user myself. Yeah, Mavic 3 rumors. Yeah, and honestly, I don't know why it says clutch partially engaged. I'm all the way down. Definitely gonna make the upgrade just because the drone videos are such a large part of my content. I enjoy flying, and I think a lot of people like seeing very well edited clips of farm equipment in action. What I'd really like to do is to start making some content where I go elsewhere but our farm and film other equipment running. I'm very good at flying drones. I'm very good at editing. I think I could go to other farms in Illinois and even out of the state and do something kind of like Farmhand Mike or Big Tractor Power does. It'd be a little different because usually that's just the center focus of their video, and I don't know how to incorporate it to my style, but I'd make it work somehow. Ron from Hartung Family Farms tells me I need to go out to Iowa after we're done harvesting and help them out. Don't know. I don't know how feasible that is. Awesome, William. I appreciate you supporting the channel and picking up the merch. I love this sweatshirt. I think it's sweet. When I was designing everything, I wanted to be something that represented the channel and also was fun to wear. I think that this design, even if you really didn't know the channel, you kind of understand the yield data. This is more of a planning data on this side, something you'd see on like Climate or your mapping software. And like I said, I am honest. We put some bread in there. There are areas here in God's country that don't yield well. Hey, thanks for stopping by. Feed those calves. At this point, this is just muscle memory. I've already made the same exact loop maybe 15 times in the last 12 hours. We started on this farm yesterday around sunset. We ran for a couple hours and we quit. It's one of those deals. I'm taking the grain cart down the road. You really don't want to be doing it on a busy road at night. Not to mention, sometimes there's mud on my tires. South Bend, Indiana. Hello. I've been to South Bend a few times. you guys have any questions, now's a great time to ask them. I'll get to them. I do my best to stay on top of the comments, but between editing the videos, farming all day, it can be very tedious to do. But I kind of go home every now and then. I sit down and get a chunk of comments done at once. So if you notice, if you comment on one of my videos, I may respond to a comment on 2 different videos at the same time. So if I go through them, it's just easier for me that way.
You think they could get better thing again, too?
That's concerned about
Asking, don't tell him. The same thing?
So right now, my mom is actually running one of our 9460Rs, our 460 horsepower 4-wheel drive. We put the vertical tilt on it this morning. We've got a big rain in the forecast this weekend. We don't have any groundwork, so we're trying to get some stuff done. They're concerned about lunch. I'm not really that concerned about it. It's actually the farm that we're harvesting right now in the videos. That's how far behind you guys are. Just wait. I mean, it gets real interesting. Everything's running smoothly up at this point in the chronological stage of the video, but in about 2 videos, we get some rain and it goes south pretty quickly, to say the least. One thing about unloading grain doesn't have great test weight, you have to be careful because you'll throw it much easier. So if the grain hits the tarp bow on the truck, it'll bounce off. If it was 60-pound corn, it would have more weight or leverage to hold it down. But this is like 54, 55-pound corn. Not good. It's still yielding decently, but I think we ran out of nitrogen. That's what happens when you're farming in a swamp. Tristan, one of these days you could definitely stop by the farm. I don't know what you would get to do, but we can surely find something for you. How's the ground up in Maine? That's why I've been struggling with wet ground. What is it, Battlefront? Yeah, the ground here is very wet. It's soft. Unfortunately, there's more rain in the forecast, and we're getting into the point of the year where fall is definitely upon us. 50 degrees is not going to be enough to dry this ground. I'm big against mudding crops out. I hate to see it. Looking at the forecast, we're doing what we have to do. I wish we had a pair of tracks on the combine. We let a used pair go that was sitting at our local dealership. It was about $60,000 for them. They sold a week or 2 ago. I think in retrospect, we probably would have bought them to put on our combine because we're making a mess. I mean, we're doing the kind of stuff those guys out to the Northwest do, steering the combines with the brakes, leaving ruts, getting the grain cart stuck. This field alone is wet. For those of you who've been here, and the combine duals right now are packed full. It looks like it's got a pair of LSWs on it. Now the crop's starting to fall over. Stock quality is deteriorated. We had a lot of disease pressure late in the season. Doesn't matter hybrid brand. It has nothing to do with that. It's just the growing season. It's taking its toll, and we're wanting to get it out. We typically do not like to wait for a frost because once it frosts, you lose a lot of grain harvesting in the frost. More concerned about the soybeans, corn, and we can pick it in December if we have to. We're not the only people here behind. If anything, we're ahead of the curve. A lot of people right now have a lot of crops to get out. Okay. Oh, Blue Mound. I have a good buddy from the Blue Mound area, John. So nice to have you here. One of my college fraternity brothers. Dan, we've got about 50 acres of soybeans.
Are you pushing back on my kids?
Not involving me, but I have the radio.
You want me to pick? You told me not to go north. I do not want you spitting at it. I go to the very north end and pick. Drive
Family bonding, guys, over the radio. 2 combine operators just
chatting. He can catch me, and then he can catch you on the north end.
Okay, that does not involve me at all. But
maybe 2 years of railroads up on the north end.
Okay, where were we?
You know you're coming down.
Dan, I don't know if I said hi to you. Sorry, I'm getting distracted here. Blue Mound, how many acres? So we got about 50 to 60 acres of soybeans left to go. The sun's out and the wind's blowing, but it is about 50 or 55 degrees today. I'm about to turn the radio off.
6 and 5 there. I cannot search around the wall and stuff.
We'll turn them down a little bit. So it's about 50 degrees, 50, 55 degrees. Yesterday the beans were too wet to cut. If they test today, if they get 14%, we're going to take the combines out there. If we have to drag them through the mud, we're going to do it because we want them out. It's not getting any drier. There's rain in the forecast, supposedly 2 to 3 inches. And then 650 acres of corn maybe. So like the 2-piece augers or the single. Todd, I really don't have much familiarity with the 2-piece augers. The gravities, the one big downside to a gravity-fed grain cart, and something we're discussing, like I said earlier here, which you probably won't hear, that we may consider, making an upgrade to a tracked grain cart. A dual auger grain cart sits lower at the top. There, see right there, a dual auger does not have to be as high walled because the auger, there's much less gravity involved with feeding it. This grain cart has to be designed to where every single inch of that grain cart needs to feed down into the main sump. A dual auger one doesn't need that. So like Millennial Farmers J&M cart would definitely be something I'd be interested in, a track J&M. We probably wouldn't run Brent just because none of our dealerships we work with sell them, or at least I don't think they sell them. And we've had great experience with J&M. They make quality carts, nice features. It's just the thing is a submarine in the mud. Need some either the bigger tires or tracks, and tracks seem to be the better alternative. I talk about it in today's video actually, which you'll see it for a long time. I was looking at the specs. We have 1050 tires on this grain cart, fully loaded. It says 1175. You can almost get 1,200 bushels of corn on this cart, nice dry corn. The pounds per square foot with these tires is 43 pounds per square foot, which is a lot. I mean, think of how much that is in terms of weight. If we put 36-inch tracks on this, so the 36-inch track on the same exact grain cart, the footprint of this cart would go from 43 to like 13 or 14, which is a third. We would lose 66% of the compaction by putting tracks on this cart. Now it is about a $50,000 upgrade, I believe, and it's one of those things. I'm not entirely sold on tracks on a lot of equipment. They have their place and they have their flaws, but on the grain cart, it seems to me like it's something where we could really alleviate our footprint. I know that a good frost and some good tillage does make a big difference on compaction. Being able to prevent that in the first place is huge. I think it may be worth the money. I'd like to be able to go out here and catch them on a go, but if I get fully loaded out in this swamp, I'm going to be needing to pull out. Oh, Dan, 2 or 3 inches in Peoria tomorrow. Don't say that. We got crops to harvest. I'll have you come down here and you can sit here with the chain and pull me out every time I get stuck. Sun's out here, Dan. Hey, Sean. You're a farming simulator person. I played some farming simulator in my day. I'm excited for the new one. Born in Kankakee. Okay, just north about 2 hours. Yeah, I do agree. Safety is very important. And I do appreciate some of you, when you comment on the videos. I know there's things we do that aren't the best example, and I try to lead you all in a good way. But there's things like safety glasses, some projects we work on probably should have them. Usually I count these as my safety glasses, but like when we were working on that grain bin, I didn't have anything, and you're right. You do take a lot of risk when you don't protect your eyes. And they're not exactly something you can replace. Dan, where are you at on vacation? We gotta turn the air on, folks. It's getting swampy in here. What was that? I don't know what she was trying to say there. So, funny story, and I'll talk about it in one of my videos. How many of you are familiar with Growing Corn 2020 on TikTok? I don't know if any of you are. If you are, let me know in the comments. No, Battlefront. So, Growing Corn 2020, also known as Tony Reed, actually lives. He's just 15 miles away from me to the west. We farm within 5 miles of where he lives. Anyways, we were over west in our farm. That's about 40 miles away. There's a car coming. I'm just gonna wait on him. About 40 miles away to the west here, and so I have to drive by his farm. It's another 15 or 20 miles west of where he farms at. And I was over there. We were over there cutting beans for 2 days, and I get a text from Tony, and he says to me, he said, well, I talked to him because I mentioned we drove, we have to go through downtown Shelbyville. Not a big town, but narrow, a lot of traffic. Just, you don't like taking farm equipment down areas like that are very congested. I texted him and I joked. I said, I just took I took a combine one night over to this farm. I said, I think I need a drink. And, he texted me back and he said, well, we actually moved over that way. That's, the same time they moved over, we just coincidentally didn't see each other. There's only one way through this town. There's a huge lake on the north side of Shelbyville called Lake Shelbyville, very large. In the south, there's a river with no good crossings. So the only efficient way is to go through Shelbyville. And the next day, we're over there cutting soybeans, and he texted me, and he said, I can hear you on our radio clear as day. So we were on the same radio channel as Tony. I couldn't hear him, but he said, I can hear everything you're saying, which I thought was just funny that he's sitting here listening to us all chatter to each other about what we're doing, cutting beans, trying to blend off wet beans and dry beans. And I don't know. Small world. That's the summary of that story. But Tony's a great guy. So Battlefront 620 actually has not been used yet. It's been so wet and we've been so busy, we haven't broken it out. It did get used one time, and you'll see an upcoming video, and it was to pull the grain cart out of a hole. I got stuck, so we brought the 620 out to pull it. You'll see in about 5 videos or so. Right now, we've got the 9460R out running the vertical till. My mom's driving it. She actually hasn't ran a tractor for us for a long time. She works a full-time job. But given the forecast, like Dan said, 2-3 inches of rain in Peoria, which means it's probably going to rain here too. We know Peoria's an hour and a half away from us. Actually, it's probably like 2 hours away from us. We're just trying to get some groundwork. On the camera around. Oh. Okay, I'll show you guys what's going on real quick. I am loading the truck. The truck is dumping down there right in the auger. You can't see because my windows are dirty. The auger is filling that bin. You don't have a big gravity wagon, so this is kind of the most efficient thing to do. This is brave of me to hold the iPad while I do this. I'm too confident in my abilities. What's crazy is how fast these 13-inch augers can eat grain. I mean, there we go. You guys see me again? a second. Yeah, sorry. I don't know why it lagged there. Hi, Perry from Michigan. Appreciate the compliment. Some people say I talk too much. It's actually very ironic. I mean, I know obviously very few of you probably know me in person, but I'm usually a very reserved person. Sometimes I start talking in front of the camera and I just don't stop. I've gotten better about not rambling, but when I try to explain things like in this last video, the limestone, the pH, even to give it a very basic summary, I have to speak for a couple minutes. I try to kind of find a balance between explaining and overwhelming. Sprinkle in some entertainment, you got a perfect video. Well, thanks for stopping by, Tristan. Maybe someday we'll cross paths. Canadian dividend. Hello. Glad to have you from Quebec. I want the record to note that what we're doing right now is one of the least efficient things possible. It's what has to be done. I can't go out in the field. Well, I can, but I might get stuck. Trucks can't go to the bin site. It's just what has to be done, like I said. Probably should have put more fuel in the tractor before I did this. One second. I was looking up where Utica is. Is that how you say it? We're ways away from there, man. That's up there about, what, hour and a half out of Chicago? We're probably 2.5 hours to the southeast, southeast. Thanks for stopping by, Dan. Dwayne, always a better way. Yeah, especially in the comment section. There's always something better to do than what we did. This is what's happening, though. We gotta go through the mud to get the crop out. We almost need a second grain cart. I will say, even if we have the trucks, having a second grain cart would be nice. Like the video you're watching right now, or the last video on that big farm, those are 3/4 mile throughs.
Andy, you can go to the north end when I'm done and catch Kate. We'll just do me and then her.
10-4. If we had 2 combines out there, I'd be overwhelmed. I spend a lot of time in this grain cart driving faster than you're supposed to drive. So we don't use the 9620 to pull the grain cart, 1, because it doesn't have a power takeoff, and you need a power takeoff to run the auger. 2, way too much horsepower than's necessary. And 3, just the dollars per hour to run a brand new machine like that, you're literally lighting money on fire.
Stop back by here. I can reload or finish loading.
You know, that 620, regardless of
that 6 down or 8 down, 8 back trees. I don't know. How many down and how many back did you do?
more bickering. But that 620 and the 780, regardless of how many hours we put on it this year, they're going to depreciate pretty substantially. That 780, if I had to speculate, it's just from a 2021 to the next model, it'll be a $60,000 to $70,000 value loss, which is similar to a vehicle. You know, you drive it off the lot, it loses money. I think the 9620 will hold its value a little bit better. Four-wheel drive tractors seem to do so. You see used 9620 quad tracks going for still $500,000. So, and the equipment market right now is insane. My dad sold one of our utility tractors, a 6430, that he's owned for probably 7 years or so. And he bought it for $60,000. We've ran it for 7 years. I mean, we just use it as a little mowing tractor, planted our sweet corn patch with it. We have a couple of them, so we wanted to get rid of one of them. And he sold it for, I believe, $70,000. So we ran it for 7 years and then sold it for a $10,000 premium. You'll hear that story a lot. A lot of people are saying, oh, I ran this tractor for this long and, I got more than I paid for it. And that's true. What they don't tell you is that you got more than you paid for it, but the replacement is way more appreciation than what yours appreciated. Like, these 9460Rs we've ran them for, I don't know, 7, 8 years. Most of them were 12s. This one I'm in is a 13 or a 14. We traded one of them off on the 9620R. We got, not what we paid for it, but we got a pretty substantial amount of money out of it. But to buy a new 9460R, it was, 30 or 40% more than what ours cost brand new. So you got to see both sides of the story. Yeah, you're getting a lot out of your used equipment, but the new equipment is so much more expensive. And really for not that much money. And I'll always say this, we've got a lot of really nice equipment here. At the end of the day, your farm equipment, other than getting your crop in and out in a timely manner, does not have anything to do with yield. It really doesn't. Genetics, fertility, drainage, and weather. Those are the 4 things. You can plant with an old 30-year-old planter, or you can plant with a brand new high-speed planter. At the end of the day, if you planted a good hybrid, you got a good stand, it's not going to make that much of a difference. Now, we run the high-speed planters purely for the sake of efficiency. We can push the pedal down faster, and we know the planter is doing a good job. Cover more acres, and that's what this game's about, is efficiency. If you're trying to grow your farm, rent farm ground, it's a game of economics. We're not aggressive cash renters by any means, but if you want to pencil it out, you have to look at every single dollar your operation's spending and see where you can save money so you can pay more. And sometimes it seems like a rat race, which is why we don't really compete in the cash rent game. Are we planning on buying a 9R track series? No, I don't think we are right now. I personally don't see the value being there to spend $100,000 difference. I mean, the tracks for a quad tractor, I believe $100,000 more. Are they really that much better than tires? I don't think so. There's something to be said in the spring if you're pulling the field cultivator about not packing down the ground. In the fall, though, it's not necessary. One thing I think about the track systems is that there's a lot of upkeep to them in terms of money to be reinvested that you don't have with tires. After you put so many hours on tracks, you're going to have to rebuild quite a bit of the system, and that's not cheap. If I were to go to a track tractor, I would probably consider leasing it, and a lot of farmers have moved to leasing as opposed to buying. There's pros and cons to every strategy. Leasing really gives you a very good idea of how much your equipment's going to cost. And if you're trying to really, like I said in my video where I talked about upgrading equipment, if you're really trying to take a fine-tooth comb to your farming operation, your inputs, your expenses, leasing gives you exactly what you need to know. You know that your four-wheel drive tractor is going to cost you $60,000 a year. No more, no less. And that's why people do that. It's something my dad has always been big on.
Acted as a stabilizer, nitrogen stabilizer.
Well, theoretically, it's supposed to act as a stabilizer, but I don't know. What does it look like? The corn's decent out there? I haven't looked at your yield monitor.
It's running 240, 250 in this row.
I think just side dressing it all, even though we didn't put as much total in on probably gave us a little bit of an advantage versus having it all on the fall on this farm. So what I was saying, my dad has always been big. He's more old school. He wants to own his equipment. He doesn't want. That's what I said. He wants to have full control of his equipment. I don't know. When you lease it, it's technically yours, but do you own it? I don't think so. You know, I'm sure there's a clause in there where if John Deere wanted to take your tractor back, they probably could. How many hours on this tractor? Oh, let me check. This tractor has 1,100.
What do you think?
I would go check them about 1:30 and see if they're going to test. I don't know when the weather's supposed to turn.
They're not going to test.
You don't know that. It's going to rain tonight. If you can get them at 15%, you might as well cut them. Sorry. Management decisions. Back 1,155 hours. This tractor is 6 years old. The most cumbersome or involving task for a tractor is running the grain. I mean, I'm literally sitting here just with the tractor on. It eats up hours. You hate to sit something brand new on a grain cart because if we put that 620 on it, we'd put 150 or 200 hours on it doing next to no work. It'd be way too much tractor for a grain cart. I would love to sit in it though. That thing's like a Rolls Royce. It's as nice on the inside as the 780 is, if not nicer.
Is Kate dumped on her?
Yeah, she wasn't full. Not sure how I feel about putting my backup camera here. I think I should have put it up front. We'll learn from that mistake and go ahead next year. Any questions I can answer? Don't be shy. Yeah, we definitely could pull a grain cart with an 8 series. The biggest reason that we switched to this 9R, the first year we had this grain cart was 2018. We had the 8R on it. We got some rain like we did this year. If it gets wet and this grain cart's loaded, those 8Rs just do not have the traction or the capability to handle mud like this 9R can. So I think I had to get pulled out 3 or 4 times, if not 5, with that 8R, just because you hit a soft spot, you either run out of power or you run out of traction. I got this grain cart stuck one time in the 3 years I've been running it with this tractor, and it was last week. So am I buying into the farm? How does that work? That's a great question. I'll try to answer this as best I can. I like to keep most of the business side of the farm, ownership and all that stuff kind of private. You know, I'm not here to showcase that. What I will say is that our farming operation is almost like a couple of farming operations in one. My grandparents, years ago, I'm a 6th generation farmer, so obviously we've been in this business a long time. My grandparents years ago operated the farm, and when my dad returned from college, he went to the University of Illinois as well. My grandpa said to him that he'd help him start out. You know, they'd work alongside each other. But as he grew his farming operation and bought his own ground and did all that stuff, my grandpa said it'd be better if you just bought your own equipment. So that is why we have 2 of everything, is because one set of everything was my grandma and my granddad, who've since passed away. You know, my granddad passed away almost 18 years ago. They had a set of equipment, and my dad had a set of equipment. That's why we have 2 combines and 2 4-wheel drives. Now we have more than that, just since we've kept growing. My family has made some very, I'd say, fortunate but lucky decisions. They bought ground years ago when it was essentially worthless. I mean, there was a time when people were giving this ground away because no one wanted to farm. There was no money in it, and it's true, there wasn't. But as the world grew, food and fuel demand, kept up alongside of it. Inflation came, all of a sudden you see that this farm ground is actually very, very profitable if you own it. And so we've done very well on that aspect. And part of the reason we have such a large community of equipment is just because, we have the capitalization to do so. If I gave the actual numbers, we have too much equipment for what we farm, but that's the way it is. As we kind of developed, I went to college. My grandparents passed away, as I said, so my dad and his brothers now maintain a share of the farm ground and the equipment. Then my dad has a large share of ground and equipment himself individually. And then one of my uncles also farms as well. So like I said, a couple different farming operations together. They're all separate, but we do everything together. We're not a separate farm, so to speak. We all run the same equipment. We all make unilateral management decisions. But at the end of the day, there's different, splits on farms, and that's why, we keep track of those things. Part of what I've tried to do when I returned home is, I wanted to develop a farming operation of my own and try to rent ground or, lease ground of some kind, start my own operation. I am very privileged, and I'm not going to deny this to you guys, that, I was born into a 6th-generation family farm that has done very well and, fortunately has some assets that provide a great life for us. My biggest goal here was to start a farming operation alongside my family's, make use of their equipment, but develop my own networking, my own infrastructure, and go on from there. I've been working on that goal for 4 years, 5 years since I got home from college. And unfortunately, it's just a slow process. I have not acquired much ground of my own. I don't really want to divulge any information on that, but, it's a very competitive industry. These farmers will practically trample each other to get ground. They'll trample each other to pay money to rent ground and lose money. I mean, that's the way this goes. And at a certain point, you're better off waiting for the right opportunity than to just stick your neck out for no reason just so you can farm for the sake of farming, which I do believe a lot of farmers do, and a lot of them don't. Some of them are very efficient financially. They pay big rents and they make good margins. Others, I think, just have way too much pride. One of the other problems with farming, which is good for my family and bad for me at the same time, buying farm ground is not financially feasible unless you have money to spend. I've saved quite a bit of money. I am in the market for a farm at some point in time, but, I'm going to have to finance it. And farm ground is not cash flow. Unless you're putting down 50 or 60% loan to value or down payment, you're not going to cash flow farming. You're going to lose money every year. Maybe this year, last year, if you marketed right, you'd make money, but you're going to have to subsidize your farm losses with off-farm income or fixed farm income, which I work for my family, so that does provide me some income. And that's one of the biggest hurdles working against young farmers. And I'm not saying this to complain, but to be realistic. You can't just start up one day and decide you want to farm and farm. You have to be very prepared. You have to capture opportunities that are laid out in front of you. You have to make the right decisions, make the right networks. Because if you decided that you wanted to buy 40 acres tomorrow, and you had the money, yeah, you could buy it. And you're going to have to secure equipment. You're going to have to operate. You're going to have to do all those things. And if you can't do it full time, you have to subsidize your income, like I said. I think at some point this winter, I'm going to make a video where I kind of talk about my take on, if you're a young farmer or just a farmer in general who's wanting to start, what you can do to kind of accomplish that goal. But it's an uphill battle. And it's an uphill battle for me. I come from a very established farm and I have equipment available to me. But just getting your foot in the door with some of those potential landowners or anything like that is a challenge, and it's a long-term game. Farm ground doesn't turn over every year. There's not opportunities to farm every year. Sometimes ground is rented out once, and that person farms it for decades. So you have to be at the right place, the right time, and have the right qualities, whether it be the highest bid or the best farming practices or the best stewardship to secure that ground. There are opportunities out there, though. Don't let me fool you. Just because there's a lot of very big farmers doesn't mean that there's not a place for small farmers as well. And there are things you can do to capitalize on a market that other people aren't doing. The big farmers, and I say big farmers, I mean, you might think that my operation or my family's operation is large. We're Monday to some people. Heck, we're before noon on Monday to some farms. But, there's a place out there for specialty growers. One individual comments on my videos all the time. Sometimes he's kind of rude about his comments, but, that's just the way it is. but he grows organically. Does a lot of biological stuff. His name's Lieutenant Colonel something. I can't think about it. You'll see him in the comments. He has very well thought out comments, and he makes some great points about agriculture. But it seems to me, and I don't know the validity to his comments, he does very high dollar production, focuses on organic things like that. I'm not going to dive into the details of organic production. I don't personally believe in the marketing gimmick of organic. I do believe in the principle, though, that if there's a market and people are willing to pay for something, then by all means, everyone should tax it if they want to. And there's things like that to do if you're a young farmer. And of course, work alongside other farmers. We're keeping the 670 next year. We'll probably keep the 670. Like I said, we're getting to the point where it seems like we may be better off with one combine in corn. So the 670 may be seeing less hours every year if we do fully make that switch to a 12-row corn head. Keep it in the barn for soybeans. I would like to put a hitch on the 670, though, because it'd be so much nicer not to have to use two trucks all the time to cart around your heads. Pull one with the combine like Larson's do and other large operations. TJ Crone. Spent a year at Newman Hall across from the library, 76, full of ag engineers. Lots of offspring of farmers. Oh, that's awesome, TJ. My dad would have graduated from the U of I in, I want to say in the 70s. I don't know when. He's 66, so if that tells you anything, you can do the math on that. I knew a handful of people who stayed in Newman. I had a few fellow ag engineers in my fraternity, Alpha Gamma Rho. You may be familiar with that one at the U of I. Mike Mitchell's farm in Canada is a large farm. Yeah, so Canada is a completely different ballgame. And I'm not too familiar with the state of their agriculture. What you've seen, though, in the last 30 years, if you look at farms, before, even like say Southern Illinois, for example, the genetics for crops had not developed the way they have now. So those farms really had to have a large amount of acreage to stay afloat. And I say that respectfully, but they didn't produce huge crops, and oftentimes they relied on government insurance and subsidies to stay year to year do well. And I think you see the same thing in Southern Illinois because the ground it's just not as productive on paper. However, you fast forward 20 or 30 years to modern day, genetics, the environment, the climate, everything has kind of shifted in a way, genetics especially, to allow some of these farms to produce massive crops. So Mike Mitchell up there, those guys in Canada, I mean, they probably secured vast amount of acreages for next to nothing. It wasn't nearly as productive when they bought it, but as things have changed, hybrids have been bred. I think they grow a lot of wheat probably and other small grains, other crops like that. I'm not terribly familiar with those crops, but nowadays the markets have developed to the point where there's a lot of money in producing things, and they farm such a large amount of acreage that scale alone, the economy of scale they have, allows them just such a good opportunity to make a good profit. And there's farms in Illinois. I mean, there's a couple farms, I'm not going to name names, that I think are close to 100,000 acres growing corn and soybeans, which is just ridiculous. Yeah, I can only imagine just watching that fleet go by. There's one south of Springfield, a very impressive operation. They run a lot of combines. They're all deer people. Good explanation. Bottom line is, Dwayne, that's not exactly true. Those are the easiest ways. Inherit it or marry it. The third one would be winning the lottery. Those are all the good ways, the easy ways to do it. But you can do it. I'm not saying you can't. And like I said, I'm going to probably make a video. One thing I think that a young farmer could really do is work for another farmer who, possibly doesn't have anyone there to take over, any heirs, and work for him, pay their dues for a couple of years on the hopes that maybe when that person retires, they can take over their farming operation. Yeah, the Powerball. Hey, you know what? If I won the Powerball, I wouldn't be farming. I can tell you that. Mike farms tens of thousands of acres of desert. Well, exactly, but same with some of these operations in Southern Illinois. That ground down there, on paper, is not as good as our ground up here. But nowadays, the crops have developed. The genetics are so good that they can grow 250, 260 bushel corn down there for ground that 20 or 30 years ago they bought for next to nothing. I'm not saying that in a derogatory way. I mean, that's great for them. That's really good. there's a lot, there's a lot of money to be made in farming. There is. There's a lot of money to be lost too, but real crop farmers, especially, I think, understate their profitability sometimes. So yeah, and that's great. A lot of times, a farmer is going to lean towards letting a family member take over. They are, and a lot of people retire and they want the highest dollar cash rent possible. And if it's their asset, they can do what they want. But at the end of the day, I think both sides of the equation deserve to make money. It's unfortunate that people, bid their ground out for, $600 an acre, but that's just the way it is. There's always opportunities out there. You just have to look for them. And you have to be patient. Doing a lot of driving today, back and forth. Can you estimate how much rented ground is cash? Are you saying for our operation, or are you talking about in general? You need to specify to me there. I mean, I could give you a summary of what I think goes on here in Illinois. There's my sister, Katie. Hold on. I know you all just are just enthralled by Katie. There she is, Katie, the combine operator. Like she's on her phone. In general, so the tough part to estimate about that, Dwayne, is, and like I said in the previous video, there's not a single farm here in Illinois, a single farm down the road from each other, two brothers, where their farming operation is the same. So that makes it very difficult. In our area, like my region here, I could tell you pretty good because, I'm familiar with the plat book. Just being honest. I kind of know what farmers have and what they don't. And it's different. Some farms are, rent, 95% of their ground and own maybe their main farmstead. Other farms own 100% of their ground, don't rent an acre. And they're going to have completely different balance sheets. Their income's going to look completely different. And, the one with more money may have the worst equipment. You really never know. It just depends on the operation. In Illinois, I would say, this is just spitballing, I would say, I'd say probably 15 to 20% of the ground in Illinois, and don't quote me on this, it's just shooting from the hip. I'd say 15 to 20% of the ground is owned by the operator of the farm or an immediate family member. So like if I was farming this farm, either I owned it or my dad owned it or one of my siblings owned it. Like that's the kind of thing I'm trying to say, or one of my grandparents, I guess. I'd say another 20% of the ground is probably rented from maybe a farther relative, so a cousin or something. And then, the remaining 60 to 70% of the ground is crop shared or rented or leased, from a non-related owner, whether it be an investment group, whether it be just an owner who doesn't have any family members that farm. And like I said, it's so hard for me to estimate on that. Our farm, I'll comment on this, we own probably 90 to 95% of what we farm we own. Which, like I said, is why we're very well capitalized. And we haven't bought much ground recently. A lot of our ground we bought, and I say we, it wasn't me. A lot of our ground we bought, decades ago. Are you asking like the rental agreements? In the last 5 to 10 years, Wayne, I think farm managers have seen a shift where a lot more cash rent is being used, a lot less crop share. And the reason being, one, as descendants get their hand on farm ground, like as farm ground gets removed every year, like, so let's say grandpa farmed, and they passed away and the kids inherited the ground. The kids have a lot of tie to that ground. So that next generation, they grew up on the farm. They have a familiarity with it and they have memories of working with dad. So, they may be a crop share family. They'll say, okay, well, we know what the farmers do. We want to be involved. Crop share is what we do. And so you see a lot of that. And then let's say the next generation, hold on a second. You want me to go dump or you want me to wait on you?
Dump, I guess.
Okay. So the next generation, the grandkids of the original owner, they'll get the ground. And that's where you kind of see a divide start to happen. You know, they may not have grown up on the farm. They may not even have any memories of the farm. So to them, you know, typically they see the farm more as an asset. It's not always the case, but a lot of times they see it as more of an asset or a money maker, which it is. And they're more inclined to cash rent. Prestige, I think that was $500 in a different currency. It wasn't $500. It was a different currency. And that next generation sees it more of an asset, so they're more inclined to cash rent it. You know, they want the money up front, and a lot of times they want, you know, more money than maybe the previous generation will sell it for, or they'll just sell the farm. Okay? There's no sentimental attachment to it, and you see that a lot. So a lot of times, you know, that affects it a lot. People, especially as people want older, they want fixed income, so they will shift to more of a cash rent. I think a cash rent is a fair deal as long as the value is representative of the year. I don't think fixed cash rents allow both parties to benefit fairly from good years and be protected from bad years. You know, if we have a great crop out here, let's say on this farm, we have a great crop, and we're renting it from someone for $300 an acre. Let's say that's what we're paying rent. And we're taking all the risk. There's nothing involved for them other than collecting their check from us at the beginning of the year, you know, during the growing season, or split up. Sometimes they're split up. And say we have $300 an acre, $350 an acre in expenses to grow this crop. So we've got $650 an acre with land and inputs, and we grow 250 bushel corn at $500, you know, at $5 an acre. That is $1,250 an acre. So that would profit us $600 an acre. So we profited $600 an acre, and this is not us, but I'm just giving you an example of why I think cash rent is flawed. And the landowner only got $300. So we had a great year, and the landowner got $300 an acre, and they didn't get to capture any of the upside of their asset. I believe that's my opinion on why the fixed cash rent is unfair to both sides. I think everyone deserves to win. You know, no one should get penalized for Mother Nature. You know, if we have a great year, I think the landowner should get to have a share in that. But if we have a bad year, you know, I don't think that it's fair for the farmer to just take the punch, you know, completely. So I'm a believer in like a flexible cash rent, so a cash rent with a bonus of some kind. A lot of times people will do a cash rent, a fixed cash rent up front with some kind of a yield and average price multiplier. So say we pay $250 an acre up front to farm it, and then we take the farm yield come harvest time. We take that yield times, let's say the average price of the December 2021 corn future. Let's say the average price is $5. So if that price times the yield is above a certain threshold, then we split it on a predetermined amount. So if it's above, say, $900 an acre, then we decide, okay, the farmer gets 2/3, the landowner gets 1/3. I think that's very fair. The farmer's still taking more risk than the landowner, but both sides get a win if there's a great year. And I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. Farmers these last 2 years have done extremely well. Maybe not the guys affected by the drought this year, but the ones who aren't have made quite a bit of money. And then, of course, you've got the crop share, which I think the crop share is the best of all scenarios. But, some people don't want to have to market their grain. They don't want to have to put up a couple $100 every year in input expenses. And I respect that. It's just all about your financial position, what the landowner wants and what you want as a farmer. Sorry, I just kind of rambled right there. Hey, it was pesos, but regardless, I do appreciate the donation. Any support on the channel is fantastic. Hey, Carters, your dad pay you a salary, or do you have a share of the farm? I don't personally have a share of the farm, other than the fact that 1/3 of the farm is technically mine in terms of, I'm 1/3 of the farm in terms of inheritance, but you can't count that. I'm not planning on, I talked about starting my own farming operation. I'm not sitting here and waiting, just waiting on what my family has to give me. I'm trying to work hard, network, develop my own farming operation so I can earn my own place in this world. And it's a challenge, but I keep my head down and keep grinding. Part of the reason I started this YouTube channel was to give me another another place to focus my energy on. I've got I'm very well educated, I guess you'd say, a scholastic background. And unfortunately, sometimes the farm can be a very slow lifestyle. Things don't move fast. And I wanted to be able to, apply myself somewhere where I could see more direct results. Yeah, Dwayne, I think it would be a good video. So, Mike, back to what you said. I kind of get paid hourly here as part of the deal. I get paid hourly, and then I do get a little bit of grain on the side. That's how farmers pay you, is they give you some grain. When are we planning on finishing harvest? Well, that's a great question. If you know the answer to that, let me know. I'd like to finish it tomorrow, but that's not going to happen. It's kind of like asking a farmer what time they're quitting for the night. They love to tell you a time, but at the end of the day, it's not really that simple to project. Yeah. So Carlos here in the comments says he's been affected by the drought and the yield is terrible. So what's unfortunate is that when a drought is more localized, they don't get to capitalize on the premiums of the year. And the one more unfortunate parts about farming is that what's bad for your neighbor or your neighbor across the Corn Belt is good for you. If they have a drought on the western side of the Corn Belt and you're on the eastern side, thanks again for the donation. I appreciate that. Lobster traps, that's wild. Okay, back to what I was saying. So if the western side of the Corn Belt has, a short yield and it drives prices up, but the eastern side doesn't have a drought, the western side doesn't really get to capitalize on a full-scale Corn Belt drought. Like 2012 was one of the worst droughts we've had in decades. The entire Illinois, Iowa, Indiana, the I-states were shot. I don't know about Iowa, actually, but Illinois we picked entire fields of corn that yielded 200 bushel, entire fields. I tell this story all over the place, sorry. I tell the story where my dad called me. I was still in high school, and he said, well, I picked a field of corn that made 200. I said, well, 200, a 40 acre field of corn, it made 200. I said, well, that's crazy. I can't believe the field made 200 bushel an acre. He said, no, the whole field made 200 bushels, 40 acres. I was like, oh, that's not what I thought you meant. But that's kind of what I mean by a widespread drought. Well, anyways, the western side of the Corn Belt has a drought. Brazil has some weather problems earlier in the season. We see prices run up. Here on the eastern side of the Corn Belt, we're picking 250 bushel corn right now and capitalizing on incredibly high prices. So we really get to capture the benefit of other people's suffering. And I hate to say it like that, but that is the reality of us being in such a global market. Battlefront, I appreciate you tuning in. Yeah, Prestige, I think a flex lease is great as long as it's written in a way that you both get it's fair. I think both parties always deserve to walk away happy with the deal. Now, some gentleman actually told me that statement exactly, so I can't say I came up with it. But, the farmer shouldn't work for nothing, and the landowner should get capitalized if their investment does really well, because everyone should win. I'd be interested to know what the flex lease they're proposing is, if you don't mind sharing. Grant, my academic background, well, it's not that crazy. I just went to the University of Illinois. I have an undergraduate degree in crop sciences. Dwayne. YouTube is a smart investment. It gets me known, but I do disagree somewhat. I don't think it gets me known in a way that helps me get farm ground. Rent farms from people. If anything, it might hurt me because sometimes I get a little wild in my comments. Hi, Halen. Glad to have you here. What time is it? 12:06. Oh, I'm just operating on muscle memory.
Don't stay right there and got your sandwich.
Did he get me something?
Yes.
Oh, my lunch is here. Man. Hey, Jeremy. I'm going to hop out of the cab real quick, use the bathroom, and grab my lunch. If you guys drop some questions in when I get back, I'll answer. Thank you, Dwayne. I appreciate the agronomy compliment. Yeah. I'd like to do some videos where, you know, I make use of not just my face talking and talk about things I think are very important in agriculture. Like I said, young farmers, you know, things you can do on your farm to better it. And one thing I'm always very adamant about is that at the end of the day, what we do on here on our farm, what I show you on the channel is just what we do and you know, what we think is optimal. It's not always the best. Like right now we're harvesting in the mud. We just got to do it. It's a part of farming. But I think that if you boil down what I have to say, take it for its, you know, mineral value and see what it's worth to you. You don't have to take what I say as gospel because I'm not right. Heck, 2 videos ago, was it last video, I made a comment about dinosaurs and fuel and oil. I don't know anything about where oil comes from. I'm sorry. I didn't study geology or whatever. I'm sorry. It comes from crustaceous microorganisms, not dinosaurs. It's funny. You got the point. That's all that matters. Give the camera to my sister. Well, that would be something funny, wouldn't it? I'm sure she'd just love to be on camera. You all want to see Katie, but, you know, it's not everyone here wants to be on camera all the time. If you haven't noticed, this isn't an episode on MTV of a reality show. This is like a zoo exhibit. Everything I catch is in motion. Nothing's staged here, you know, unless I'm doing like an equipment tour. Everything's real time. Every problem is real. And a lot of times because of that, I miss out on a lot of good shots because at the end of the day, we're a farming operation. I just happen to carry a camera around with me. But I will talk about it. Maybe I'll throw her my camera one of these days and see if she'll record around. Mike, I appreciate the compliment. Yeah, it's just part of YouTube. You got to keep making videos, keep growing, build an audience. 1 second. My food's here. I'm going to mute. All right, we're back. Large Christmas bonus. Hey, my bonus is based on how often the combine stops, and right now it's not looking good. Guys, trippy is just an adjective. Relax. Does it look like I just fried my brain or something? Did I come off as that? How many acres of corn? We've got about 600 to 700. I'm somewhere in there. Wouldn't tracks work better? Yes, tracks would work a lot better. They would. We don't own any tracks for the combines. If we did, they'd be on right now. Tracks on the grain cart would be a tremendous upgrade. Before the S-Series combines, we had a 9770 STS and a 9670 STS. The 9670 is the one that just left the farm over the off season. The 9770 we traded in for this X670 probably 4 or 5 years ago. I like the S-Series, and one thing I will say is those STS combines were one of the most reliable machines ever built. They were great. Honestly, I was sad to see the 9670 go because they were such good machines. Unfortunately, time takes its toll on us all. We wanted to upgrade for the sake of ergonomics. The S-Series combines are much nicer internally. They're quiet. They've got nice features. At the end of the day, though, you know, you boil the machine down to what it is. Those STS combines were phenomenal. What about an 8R track series? I have heard a farmer over in Indiana on Twitter that I see. He has an 8R quad track, and it's a little soupy over there too, I believe, wet ground. And he claimed that their 8R would spin out pretty quickly. That 8R quad track, a twin track might be better. Unfortunately, though, when you got a loaded grain cart, it takes a lot to pull it. So, I mean, the quad tracks, those 8R quad tracks would be phenomenal planting tractors. I think in wet conditions like that, especially with a big grain cart, they'd probably struggle a little bit. They're very expensive too. I'm not quite sure those 8R quad tracks, how reliable those little tracks are. I've heard some very bad things about them. Yeah, Prestige, if you have a reasonable cash rent, you might as well go for it. I mean, I'm just shooting from the hip here. You know, I've heard rumors of cash rents here in this off season for next year, and they're between a 5 and a 6 up front. That's what people are bidding for ground. Which, if that's what they want to pay, that's up to them. Jeremy, I haven't looked at the combine monitor. The field we picked before this was run about 15.3% average, so it's dry. We don't have to dry it. Anything under 18%, we can just throw in a bin and just blow air through it, and it'll be fine. Josh, I think it's funny that it draws you into the channel. Yeah, I don't see the comments much recently, but when I first started the channel, I had a lot of people say, well, you know, Trippy Farmer, those are not the crops I thought you'd be growing. Yeah, sorry to disappoint you guys. You're a workhorse when it comes to YouTube. Well, I do my best. It certainly cost me a lot of sleep, and I have started to hit the caffeine up again. Allie's back home. She takes the meat off of the videos. You know, I don't always speak as well as I appear to in the videos. So she takes the bulk of it off, but I still have to come home every other night and edit videos, fine tune it. I have to spend a couple hours. If I have drone footage, it makes it even lengthier. I've gotten much quicker in my process, but I do get distracted sometimes watching. I do get distracted from YouTube videos and watching people game on Twitch. That's what I like to do. But I do my best. You know, at the end of the day, I want to keep it consistent. When it gets to the off season, I'm not very consistent about uploading. I don't really want to bore you guys with just, you know, everyday bland content of me sitting in a semi truck hauling grain. So in the off season, I may try to make some talking head videos, maybe talk about some more interesting things. You know, like I said, young farmers, all that. One thing about uploading every other day, as opposed to every day, one, it makes it easier on me. Two, I think that if I upload every single day, that it's actually counterproductive in terms of viewership. If I think you can cannibalize your audience by making, like, overwhelming them with videos. That and having them spread out more allows me to have more consistent content, because if we had a week of rain delays right now, I would still have videos to cover for another week. This is not very much traffic today. No, Ryan, $500 to $600 an acre. $500 to $600. That's a lot of money. And Prestige, Juicy J. I love Juicy J. Trippy Mang. You can get a 16-row corn head, yes. Do we have one? No. One thing that farmers like to do, it's not required, but they like to match their corn head to be a divisible, evenly divisible number of their planter. So if you have a 24-row planter, they're either going to run an 8-row or a 12-row. If you run a 16-row, you're not going to line up right every time, which isn't necessarily an issue with auto steer, but it would make taking the end rows off a pain, among other things. Dwayne, I have played Farming Simulator. I haven't as much lately. I'm excited for the new one to come out. Prestige, I never got out. If I wouldn't pee already, we'd be wearing a diaper. Prestige, where are you from? Waiting the John Deere. Yeah, waiting on the John Deere mechanic. That's just a way of life. I will say that around here, I know the combine issue painted our John Deere mechanics in a bad light, but I don't think you guys really understood the situation. When the combine broke down initially, it was on a Saturday evening at like 6 o'clock. The John Deere dealership closes at 5 on a Saturday, which I'm glad they're open. They got us some parts. I think it actually broke down like 4. We got some sensors. They weren't the right thing. I mean, obviously you start at the cheapest part and work your way up, because you don't want to start at the most expensive part and work your way down. They don't work on Sundays. They never have. We didn't expect them to. I mean, let's be realistic. You can't work those guys to death. And like I said, a lot of farms don't even work on Sundays, so that's part of the reason they don't do it, because the mechanics are...
Sample at the elevator was 15.9.
Someone brought in 15.9 beans.
That is correct. No, a sample was.
Okay. What was I saying? I'm completely lost. Oh, well, they worked on a Sunday. They didn't work on a Sunday, so, I mean...
I think I'll probably do one more hopper and then go to the railroad and cut those, and then go up to Able.
Well, if they're 15.9, you might as well give them another hour at least. Sorry, we're talking about cutting soybeans. We got a couple fields of soybeans we want to finish off. Back to what I was saying. So they don't work on Sundays. And on Monday, first thing Monday morning, I mean, before I was even at work.
An hour to get up there and get everything switched.
Before I was even at work, they were there looking at that combine. And then, they had to work. And that was a major problem. That's a deal where they have to Deere themselves, like Deere's regional or national problem specialist team was on that case. I mean, our mechanic was talking to, I believe, what they'd call a DTAC person. So, it was a unique problem, just a flaw. I don't remember if they ever specifically found out what was wrong with the pump. They think it was the hydrostatic pump. They replaced the hydrostatic motor as well. And I think that was more of a cautionary thing. They sent those both off to Deere, to Deere's.
And go cut the railroad, and they can take a bigger box, and then when it's able, maybe it'll be 14.
I mean, they did the best they could. We got it up and running as fast as possible. I think on Tuesday night, Deere told them that they needed to get the motor as well, and they drove probably 5 hours at least round trip to go get that, to have it on the combine the next day. So I'm appreciative. I don't want to make it seem like they did us wrong. You do have to realize that sometimes I'm a little bit dramatic for the sake of thumbnails and content, because people love to see you suffer. Yeah, I do enjoy Farming Simulator. So, along the same lines of watching farming YouTube videos, sometimes I do it all day, and coming home and doing it more can be just, it's not as entertaining for me sometimes. I like to play games like Call of Duty, Battlefield, things of that nature. The Ivers family or JR. Yeah, so Ivers and Ruches are actually, I would say they're an hour away, maybe to the southeast. Wow, that's black smoke. You see that smoke up there to the north, Dad? Jeez. Hope that's not a combine.
Probably burning a mattress.
Someone burning a mattress, you said.
I don't think so. That's a pretty big smoke.
Okay, so yeah, they're to the southeast. They actually, I think, Ivers, I believe, seeing this, I don't think they run Deere anymore, but I know Ruches, they use Alliance Tractor, which Alliance Tractor only has 4 dealerships now. They've got Mattoon, Casey, Newton, and Vincent. So Ruches they definitely use Alliance Tractor, which is funny because they were one of the farms who were waiting on, I think, drapers. They were supposed to have a new draper or a couple of the new drapers that didn't even come in until like 2 weeks ago. These were all scheduled to be delivered, much, much longer. We have one of my friends that's a farmer. they were expecting a 780, and these were trades. They traded their combine, I think, in April, and they let it go. Which, I mean, we wouldn't do that, and I think in retrospect they probably regretted doing it, but it was part of the deal. They let their old combine go, and their new one was supposed to be in September and maybe August actually, and it didn't even show up until the first week of October. And I mean, they were picking 25% corn because they had contracts to fill, and the last week of September. So Alliance Tractor had to find them a loaner to use. It's an interesting scenario, and the state of the supply chain is not good right now. Regardless of what the media tells you, there's a lot of problems out there, and it's not just one factor. COVID played a big role in it. There's shipping issues, there's union strikes, and there's a major, major energy crisis. Not necessarily here, but in Europe, China, all that over there. The price of electricity, power, natural gas has skyrocketed. I mean, it's so expensive. And that's part of the reason you're seeing these fertilizer shortages, chemical shortages, Roundup. I mean, a lot of that Roundup you see is made in China, and they're having rolling blackouts over there. And it's a whole deal, and they don't really talk about it. Gosh, do I play Tarkov? I have played Tarkov. I haven't played it much lately, but I played it for a while. I probably got 100 hours on it. That game really makes me angry because I'm not that great on keyboard and mouse. I'm more of a controller player. And you go out there, and then you have you have a couple $1 million in gear, and then you get destroyed by someone who's really good at the game. So yeah, that is a game I have played. Where are your girlfriends at? Don't you have a couple of girlfriends? If I have a couple of girlfriends, you're telling me. I've got one girlfriend. We trippy man. Yeah, you can't beat some Juicy J. It's not none of it's YouTube appropriate though. Max, hey Max, I appreciate the compliment. I invested quite a bit of money recently in a new camera, so that's why the quality of my stuff is very good. My explanations are just because I'm long-winded, I guess, is what you'd say. Everyone tells me I should be a teacher, but that's the last thing I want to do. New equipment purchases, I'll talk about it later, but we traded for a brand new field cultivator. It's supposed to be here in March. I'll believe that when I see it. Anything you'd like to try that's not green? I want to try a Lexion. I want to try a Lexion combine. I'd try a Case Quad Track too. Or a Fendt. I'd try a Fendt tractor. I've heard those Fendt tractors I heard they're the real deal. Those Europeans know how to build a tractor. DeKalb County. I know a few people from DeKalb County. Dwayne was just at Alliance in Newton. Yeah, Dwayne, and that's something, going back to the combine deal, someone said that, they should have a combine, ready for you. There's no combines out there, guys. There's none. They had one loaner, and someone else already had it. Their combine that broke down wasn't a brand new combine, but they have a responsibility when someone breaks down to give them a combine if they have one. There's none out there. You have to understand the state of manufacturing and supply chain right now, and just market demand. Farmers are buying a ton of equipment. A lot of them have started buying second combines. because the used market is strong. People are finding low-hour machines to run 2 and beans because it makes a world of difference. Down in Newton, Dwayne, I think is where they stock most of their parts. They have a pretty impressive warehouse of parts. Do you think tracks are worth it? In certain scenarios, yes. I think tracks on a grain cart are worth it. That's something that I'd like to make an upgrade on. On tractors, I'm not 100% sold on them. Run those 16% beans, plug them through. Hey, you know,
bushels if you ran through that, Kate, from this field.
Here's the trick, guys, cutting wet beans. I wouldn't say this on the video, but you cut them all at 16%, you put them on the grain cart, and by the time the grain cart is full, the combine will be cut 14%. You blend them out. That's the trick. Because that's what the elevator is going to do to you.
How many bushels have you done from this field? 71, 78.
Brian, I have no idea what you're talking about, but you make me want to put a tinfoil hat on. I know, that's just a strange comment. Lucas, I appreciate that you enjoy watching the videos. Yeah, I can just tell from afar that Brazilian farming, South America in general, is completely different, but you seem to be catching up with us in terms of infrastructure. I'm surprised that your equipment is much more expensive, though. The one thing I have seen that I'm jealous of is you guys don't have to run all these Tier 4 silly emissions tractors. You got to have that straight pipe. That's awesome that you can grow 3 crops. Hazelnut Farm in Oregon. Actually, ironically, a farmer just to the south of us here, a family friend, is a hog farmer. They went to Oregon. I can't remember if it's Mumford, something like that. And they bought an old plantation or estate, and they started a vineyard there a couple of years ago. It's cool that a hog farmer from northern Cumberland County has a vineyard out in Oregon somewhere. I've never been, but I heard it gets very hot in Oregon in the summer. Very hot. Bob from southeastern Colorado. We're in the thick. I bet you that's beautiful country out there, Bob. I'm a big fan of snow skiing. Go to Beaver Creek, Colorado, which I know is much different than where you're at, but every time I think of Colorado, I think of that. I've heard that the market for Milo or grain sorghum is actually very strong. So, like, Chinese demand is very high. I guess it's a great cattle feed. Grant, I know that. Okay, Grant. Yeah. So Alliance Tractor, they merged with another dealership in Vincennes. They were originally Schilling Brothers was the dealership. Schilling Brothers had 3 stores: Matthew, Newton, and Casey. Is that what I said? And I don't know how much of it was Deere's involvement, Mother Deere, not the company, and how much it was their own. But they merged, or they bought out, or somehow they got in with the store in Vincennes, and they created Alliance Tractor. Which, there's good and bad. It's neat having a family-owned dealership like that. But Sloan's is still around. Sloan's is family-owned. Having connection issues. I don't know why. I'll pause for a minute. Dwayne used to sell hogs, Fort Branch. Yeah, the hog market has changed a lot in the last 20 years. What hasn't changed? I feel like you see a lot less small, independent hog farmers and a lot more large contract farms and just very large containment facilities. Before my time, my family had quite a herd of livestock, and that was back when you raised hogs on open pasture. So we had hog lots, not, we didn't have hog barns, we had hog lots. Oh.
Dad, you want me to keep cooking?
I think we're gearing up to go cut beans, folks. You can definitely tell a hog lot. Hey, you know what, Dwayne? I could tell you without even talking to my family where our hog lots were, especially in fields that we farm, because there is an indefinite amount of ragweed, giant ragweed out there. It's never gone away. Hey, Ben, thanks for the donation. I really appreciate that. I'm glad you enjoy the channel. I do. I'm very grateful for all your support. I'm gonna stop. The nice thing is giant ragweed is easy to kill. It's somewhat easy to kill. Water hemp, on the other hand, is very hard to kill. I get a lot of questions about cover crops. I'm not an expert on them by any means. I'm a very conventional farmer. I've been taught, grown up around tillage, turn it black every year. That's the way we do it. I think there's a lot to be said about a cover crop, especially in soybeans, for weed control. I'd have to see all the other claims, nutrient scavenging, decompaction. I think there's a lot of merit in that, but one of the hardest parts about a new practice like that for a farm is just getting your foot in the door and the convenience of doing it. Because if you really wanted to do a cover crop the right way, in my opinion, you would almost need to interseed it. Like if you wanted to plant something ahead of a bean crop, the best time to do it would be in a standing corn crop. You have to have specialized equipment. You have a very limited window. That was rough. To get a cover crop in, especially like a rye. I've got a college friend who they've run a considerable sized farm in Christian County, and they've gone really heavy into the cover crop, especially on dark, very productive acres, which traditionally the good ground is where you see the disc rippers and the chisel plows. But they've made use of cover crops. They use rye specifically, and I think it's worked really well for them. I'd love to see it. There's no right answer by any means, and I think sometimes people take my statements as black and white. It's not. There's so much gray area in farming. There's so many different ways that you can approach a problem with a solution that works. Well, Lucas, even though you're behind in tech, once you catch up on it, you'll enjoy it, because that auto steer and all that stuff is very nice. So, Lucas, does it not freeze there? As much as I don't enjoy the cold weather, I do enjoy a good freeze because it is the greatest equalizer. After what we're doing out here in these cornfields, mudding them in, having a frost would be. Now you tell me. Okay. Well, I'm going to try and back up here. It'd be nice if the combine driver would radio me before I'm 100 yards past him. So he wants to dump. Oh. Yeah, I'd love to live stream more, but sometimes it's just not that feasible. You'd be surprised, and I'm sure you can tell in my videos, I do a lot of moving around. We don't run an operation that keeps me in one seat for very long. Not everything we do is optimal. Sometimes I'm in the combine or I'm in a truck. So it's hard to set up. Not to mention, there's areas we farm where my iPad will not stay connected to the internet. I've tried that before, and it's frustrating to just sit here and lag the whole time. Huh. Well, it'd be nice to not have freezing temperatures, like I said, but I'd hate to see what our ground would be like if it didn't freeze. You guys think the beans are going to cut today? Glad to have you from Denmark. Welcome. It's always amazed me on YouTube just how you get people from all over the world, and not just for you watching me. I enjoy watching farmers in different disciplines in the United States, but also farmers in other countries. It's just really cool to see agriculture and how diverse it is. At the end of the day, we all have the same goal, and that's not lose money. No, I'm just kidding. Feed the world. That's what they tell us, and fuel the world, because we do use a lot of our corn for fuel. A lot of vibrating. Hey, for those of you who weren't here at the beginning, check out this rut I left, and this is why I'm not in the field. This was the first time I tried to leave the field. I almost didn't get out.
And you can start your start on Madman. What's that? I don't know.
The video does not really do it justice. Those are like a foot and a half deep. That's why the grain cart's gonna have tracks one of these days. I'm glad I don't have to mow the yard here. Oh, so we get a little corner. Perfect. Diesel prices here, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't handle the purchasing of diesel fuel. I think if I had to guess, non-taxable or non-tax diesel fuel right now is probably in the mid twos, but I don't know. Like 2.5. I really don't know. Might be closer to 3. Fuel prices have kind of crept up here over the last 2 years or a year and a half since the change in office. Not that that has anything to do with it, but like I said, the world is in an energy crisis right now, and it's affecting a lot of industries.
They said it's like an oil tank sitting there on the east side of the fire.
Do I prefer harvesting corn or beans? I prefer cutting soybeans. Other than having to wait for them to dry in the mornings when you're rolling, they're just so much easier. There's less grain to handle. They cut smoother, and the entire process is nice. I prefer planting over harvest. I enjoyed harvest for like the first week to 10 days, and I'm ready for it to be over now. Some random person comments, who's your favorite YouTuber? Harton Family Farms or Ron Schrader? That's a tough one. Yes. There you go. Yes. JD. Good afternoon from Decatur. Hey, I go to Decatur pretty frequently. Got a very good childhood friend whose family runs. Very good childhood friend whose family runs a power sports dealership in Decatur. In a good year, how many times do you usually apply chemicals on beans? So on soybeans, typically 3 passes. First pass is a pre-emergence or a burn down with the residual. So a herbicide, depending on our tillage. If we no till, we need to spray something to kill off all the weeds. If we till it, we'll just put something down. It's almost like a layer of protection to kill off broadleafs to kind of buy us time until that second pass. We'll come in with the second pass, usually first week of June, second week of June, depending on the herbicide we are applying and kind of the weather conditions of the year and the forecast. For the most part, we're spraying, at that time we're either spraying Liberty, glufosinate, Enlist, so 2,4-D, or Extend, or so dicamba. Dicamba is the trickiest one of the bunch to apply, and a lot of times you have to err on the side of caution and apply it earlier than we'd like. So because you have very limited amount of time to get it on, and the conditions have to be exactly perfect based on the label requirements, because it's a bit of a rascal to say the least. And then our third application is usually kind of around that second week of July, the third week of July, and that's our fungicide and insecticide pass. That's more of a supplemental deal. So it's not a weed control pass. It is a yield boosting pass or a plant health pass. We've seen year after year on soybean a very large return on investment for fungicide. And we've seen it for probably the last 5 years, 6 years. Our check strip 2 years ago was 8 bushel an acre difference versus untreated. Soybeans are just so susceptible to diseases like frog eye leaf spot, a couple other ones, but that's really the main one that causes yield loss. And any way you can keep the plant healthier allows it to fight off all diseases better. I think our application, honestly, in general, people applying fungicide and insecticide is part of the reason that we've seen soybean averages go up so much higher in the last decade. Because before, 10 years ago, if we cut 60 bushel beans, like that was a good year, 60 bushel beans. If we had 60 bushel beans, I would be very disappointed this year. Like just in general, like this is a point where our bottom end is 70 now. A great crop is in the 90s, which I don't think we're gonna have any 90s this year. We haven't yet. Our best crop, our best year ever was 2018. So far, it was 2018, and we had some fields average over 90, which is impressive. We've really just seen that bottom end go up on both corn and soybeans over the last decade. Part of that is genetics. Part of that is, we've learned management practices, nitrogen management, fertilizer that have kind of helped us reduce our strain on bad years. Which tractor will I use to plow this fall? If you're asking me personally, I'll probably run every one of them if we get an opportunity, if the weather allows us to. The 9620R is going to be the earth mover. I don't know if we'll even get to use that inline ripper if it stays wet, but we may use our disc ripper more than I was hoping to. I don't know. Oh, I don't know. I think we're getting ready to go cut some soybeans, or attempt to cut soybeans. If we hook up the drapers, we're going to cut them. I'm just telling you guys now. That's the way it's going to go. Oh, that's loud. There's Dad in the 780. I would imagine that we'll probably just set these corn heads down in the field or at the barn lot or the bin site and go grab the drapers and cut those beans.
So set this corn head right here?
Well, literally what I said. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty firm. I think we can get it from there.
Is it okay right here?
I mean, if it rains, the combine can go out there and pick it up. Thanks, Jeremy. It is a really nice combine.
All the way right here.
For me, yeah. It is nice. I mean, it's a big upgrade for us, Jeremy. I don't make it seem like it's not something we're used to.
Don't know if I can get this off.
That was a 6 years newer than what we had before. But guys, I'm getting summoned to work. I don't want to take this with me because who knows what happens. I can't edit things that happen live. So I appreciate you all tuning in. Should have a video out tomorrow. Like I said, you're about 10 videos behind where we are in real time. Things get kind of muddy, so make sure you stay tuned. Again, thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.
I'm going to let you keep thinking till I get